We've all been there, haven't we? Chasing happiness like it's this butterfly you can never quite catch. Always seems dependent on the next thing, right? A promotion, maybe a vacation, or just, I don't know, someone noticing what you did. It feels so fleeting, so tied to what happens to us. But what if, and this is the big question, what if real lasting happiness isn't about those external things at all? What if it's actually about what's happening inside you? That's exactly what we're getting into today here on The Deep Dive. We're looking at this really fascinating blueprint for cultivating what our source calls unshakable happiness. It's rooted in some pretty ancient wisdom. We're pulling insights mainly from Rabbi Shlomo Ezagui, published in places like Israel National News and the Times of Israel. And the core idea, well, it's kind of a radical shift for many of us. It says happiness isn't some prize for the lucky few. It's a state of mind. It's a conscious choice you make and something you, well, practice every day.
Right. And what's really striking about this viewpoint is how much it flips the script on how we usually think about happiness. It's suggesting that, true happiness doesn't come from having no problems. I mean, let's be real, who has that? But rather it comes from our ability to find peace, find gratitude while we're in the middle of those problems. So it's less about chasing something out there and more about cultivating something in here.
Okay, let's unpack that foundational idea then.
Yeah.
Because it apparently starts with a really strong instruction, right? The source points to the Torah, specifically Psalms 100, verse 2. Serve God in joy, come before him in song. And it mentions the Rabbi Menachem Shearson, right? A major figure in Chabad Lubavitch. He apparently really pushed this idea of being besimcha, which is, being joyous as like a core part of being a good Jew. It almost sounds like it's not optional.
It really does sound like a directive, doesn't it? And that's where this blueprint starts feeling revolutionary. It's not about waiting for the storm to pass to be happy. It's about learning to, well, maybe not dance in the rain, but find your footing, your peace, your gratitude during the storm. And yeah, that really challenges the common view that happiness depends on getting that approval or, just catching a lucky break. The real takeaway here, the kind of aha moment, is shifting from happiness from circumstances to happiness within them. It implies you're actively managing your inner state no matter what's going on outside.
Okay, so if we're managing our inner state, the source then brings up this really powerful concept. Our thoughts don't just react to reality, they actually shape it. The idea is what we focus on grows. That sounds huge. How does that actually play out day to day? How do we start using that?
That's really the crux of it. The Baal Shem Tov, founder of the Chassidic movement, he taught something profound. In the place of a person's thoughts, that's where he lives. Basically, if you keep dwelling on the negative, the frustrating stuff, well, that's the reality you're expanding, you're living in. But if you consciously, intentionally shift your focus to gratitude, to your purpose, to what's possible, that becomes your foundation. And it's not just wishful thinking. There's another key teaching here from Rabbi Schneur Zalman's Tanya. He says, a man by his very nature has control over his mind, even when things are tough, even when there's pain. Now, this isn't about sticking your head in the sand or pretending problems aren't real. No, it's about mastering your mental space within that reality. You're reclaiming your inner landscape, you could say.
Right, mastering the inner landscape. I get the theory, but I bet people listening are thinking, okay, sounds good, but how? How do I actually do this? What are the practical steps, the daily actions to actually cultivate this joy?
Exactly the right question. And the blueprint offers some concrete steps. It argues you have to claim happiness intentionally, and it starts, maybe surprisingly simply, right when you wake up, with gratitude. There's an anecdote about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, again. Apparently his favorite prayer was the Modeh Anani. That's the very first prayer you say in the morning, just thanking God for returning your soul. Simple but profound. And this points to the importance of consistency. The source emphasizes that the daily, repeated choice to focus on what is good, even the little things, the ordinary miracles, it actually trains the spirit to return to joy as a habit. It even connects this to regular prayer, often 3 times a day in Jewish practice, saying that consistency is essential for the success and purpose of prayer from the start. It builds a pathway.
That consistency makes sense. And speaking of mornings, I really like that suggestion to reclaim your mornings. Basically, don't immediately grab your phone or turn on the news. Avoid that external input right away. Instead, start with some reflection, maybe prayer. Set a clear intention for the day. I know that feeling, right? You check your phone first thing, and bam. Your whole energy for the morning is suddenly dictated by emails or headlines. Is that what this is warning against?
That's exactly it. You're letting the outside world dictate your inner state before you've even had a chance to set your own course. It's about being proactive with your mental real estate. And that intention isn't just for the morning. The advice extends throughout the day. It's just monitoring your emotional state. If you find yourself drifting into negativity or anxiety, intentionally adjust, maybe through physical movement, a quick prayer, or just consciously bringing gratitude back to mind. And this isn't just about feeling better in the moment. The source makes a pretty bold claim here. It says if you practice these habits consistently, maybe even for just 30 days, Jewish law suggests they can rewire your mind and nervous system, making joy and peace your default setting, not the rare exception. Think about that, rewiring your default state. That's significant.
Well, rewiring. Okay, so if we're doing the work, building this inner joy, what are the things that tend to knock us off track? What undermines that peace? The source mentions resentment as a big one, an enemy of joy, and that letting go of old hurts, sort of accepting God's plan and things, frees up energy.
That's a huge one, resentment. And right alongside it, the source points to impatience and comparison. Those also erode peace.
Right.
You know, constantly measuring yourself against others or against some timeline you've made up in your head, it just breeds anxiety. It makes you lose sight of your own unique path. The source even quotes King Solomon, everything has its time. There's a wisdom in trusting the timing of your own life. And it also warns against chasing external validation, like constant need for applause or approval. It's described as a trap. It says your worth isn't based on external validation or applause. Being authentic, true to yourself and your values, that's what sets you free from the uncertainty of public opinion. You're not tossed around by what others think.
And this is where things get really, really interesting, I think, because the source suggests this ancient wisdom isn't just, spiritual ideas in a vacuum. It draws this incredible parallel between these mystical insights and, get this, modern quantum science, implying that you're definitely not isolated in this effort to live a joyful, meaningful life.
Yes. This connection is genuinely profound. Think about it. Quantum physics tells us that what looks like solid stuff is actually, at its core, vibrating energy, potential, maybe even intelligence. The source says quantum physics reveals what appears to be solid matter is, in fact, vibrating, intelligent energy. And this mirrors ancient mystical teachings, particularly Kabbalah, which describe a universe where God's presence isn't distant, but within and around every atom and moment. So the feeling of being separate, of being lonely. According to this view, those are illusions created by limited perception. The deeper reality is unity. All is one, and each life is a unique expression of this infinite unity. It even makes this powerful statement: you are an expression of the same energy that makes the sun and the great mountains. And so that sense of separation we often feel, maybe it's just a trick of the light, so to speak. The underlying reality, according to both mysticism and hints in quantum physics, is connection. We're already part of this infinite creative energy, so seeking happiness isn't about finding something out there. It's about aligning with what's already inherent within us and within everything.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take in. You're part of the energy of the sun and mountains. So if we really try to grasp that, this bigger picture view of unity, what does that actually mean for how we live day to day? How does it change things?
That's the critical question, isn't it? How does this high-level understanding translate? Well, Maimonides, the great medieval Jewish thinker, offered a powerful image. He said you should always view his life as a balanced scale. And get this, one single good deed could potentially tip the scales, not just for you, but for the entire universe. That's the potential impact of recognizing our interconnectedness. And Chasidus, that spiritual movement we mentioned, takes it further. It teaches that the divine presence is immanent meaning right here within creation and especially within every person. The soul itself is described as an actual part of God. Every Jew, it teaches, carries a spark of the divine. Now, knowing that, truly internalizing that, brings both courage because you're connected to something infinite and humility because so is everyone else. It leads to what the source calls quiet confidence. Your actions, your habits, they start to reflect this inner certainty. You don't need the external applause quite so much because you're acting from a deeper place of knowing.
Quiet confidence. I like that. And speaking of actions, there's that fascinating story you mentioned earlier about the Tinmark Tzedek. He was the third Rabbi of Chabad. And he advised someone struggling to feel joy to just act joyful, regardless of feelings. Because the outward action could eventually spark the inner feeling. It sounds a bit like fake it till you make it, but maybe deeper.
Exactly. It's like that, but with a spiritual dimension. It connects to this broader principle that the source highlights. The energy behind all existence responds to alignment, focus, and faith. There's this powerful teaching quoted: The measure a person uses for himself is the measure God uses to determine what he bestows upon him, meaning the energy you put out, the standard you hold for yourself, influences what comes back to you. And here's another surprising parallel with modern science mentioned in the source. Quantum mechanics apparently reveals that even empty space, even nothing, is full of potential and intelligence, just waiting. So from this perspective, prayer and faith aren't last resorts or acts of desperation. They're more like confident partnerships with the creative force embedded in everything. You're aligning yourself with that inherent potential. You're asserting your inner state and trusting that the universe, or God, responds to that focus and faith.
Okay, so let's try and distill this down. After this whole deep dive, what's the core takeaway? It seems like happiness isn't the prize you get at the end, maybe for being perfect or just getting lucky. It's more like the result of the work. Consistently practicing gratitude, focus, faith, acting authentically, cultivating that inner world.
That's a great summary. It's exactly that. The source calls it a kind of spiritual agreement renewed in each moment, nurtured intentionally. And the final, really powerful takeaway is this. Your happiness becomes unshakable when you realize it depends not on external circumstances, but on your choice to see, serve, and embody the unity and brilliance that have always existed within and around you. It's an ongoing practice, a conscious engagement with reality itself.
So a final thought for everyone listening. If our inner state truly matters that much, and if we really are expressions of this vast unified energy, what's one subtle shift, maybe just one small change in your focus today, that could start tapping into that deeper, maybe unshakable sense of peace and purpose? Something to think about.